Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the mid-morning show with me, Zaheerah Bham-Ismail, right here at Salam Media. Today's program has been generously brought to you by Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating and inspiring. You can visit their website on www.africamuslimsagency.co.za. It's quite fitting that we're talking about an organization that's empowering, educating and inspiring, which moves us into our discussion on the BELA Bill. The BELA Bill, I put this out onto my social media pages, and as much as many people were aware that this BELA Bill exists, they're aware that there's controversies around it, but very few people actually understood what the BELA Bill actually was about. They just knew it was something that we needed to object to. They had no idea how it was going to affect them or impact them or their children. And we wanted to sit down with a few people to discuss our understanding of the BELA Bill. The BELA Bill proposes significant amendments to the South African Schools Act of 1996 and the Educators Employment Act of 1998. And it just is fitting that we've got two phenomenal guests in our studio with us to help us unpack that, to have a better understanding of what that BELA Bill means to us, what it means for educators, what it means for our schools, what it means for our children, and how it actually makes a difference. I'd like to welcome to our studios Ian. Ian is a teacher for 30 years, 11 years as a headmaster, and in management for 26 years. Ian, welcome to Salam Media.
Thank you for having me.
And our next guest is Yasmin Bamji, who is an attorney. She's a strong advocate for children's rights, a family mediator, mum of three, board member for 8 years, advising on legal concerns and risk management. And she works for a number of non-profit organizations with a focus on education in the public sector and on a number of school boards as well. Yasmin, welcome to the studios.
Thank you, Zaheerah.
Let's get right into this. And the reason I do this is because I know we always run short on time, as there's been proven in the last few days in our discussions. This BELA Bill, just let's start from what exactly is it? Because we've heard this name being thrown around. We've had the fear put into every parent that this BELA Bill is coming in and is going to take our kids off course and impact their education, and we have no control of their education. Ian, if we can start with you, giving us an understanding of what exactly is the BELA Bill, or Yasmin.
Well, my understanding of it is when it was put out with scare tactics in place, because those who didn't want to hear about it said it was bad and didn't bother to do any investigation. Other people may think that there's some good in it. I think that there's good and bad in it. And we need to unpack that. However, I think that something like this, as a good friend told me once, change needs to start now. If not now, then when? And so we need to start change. I just think that it's 30 years too late. But let's start the change.
And like you said, it's time to start now. Yasmin, as Ian's mentioned, this name BELA Bill has come with a number of scare tactics around it that is literally just put people on a back foot. But just on a simple social media survey, not many people were even aware of what they're afraid of in the BELA Bill. Has this even been passed? Is this even a passed bill?
So the bill was in Parliament and was voted in favor in May. However, the bill is waiting for the President's signature. On the appointment of the new Minister of Basic Education, she's issued a statement that she wants to send the bill back to Parliament for consideration before the President can sign. And you very rightly stated that this seeks to amend acts of legislation that have been in practice for over 30 years and that came about after apartheid. So in the 30 years, the administration has seen that they haven't made enough strides in providing basic education. And the BELA Bill was introduced about 10 years ago. And obviously with bills, there's a lot of input. There's a white paper, a green paper, a bill getting to Parliament. There's a long process. And with regard to the scare tactics that came about, I think it was last year, towards the start of the year, where people were getting lots of WhatsApps that your children are going to be able to have an abortion without you knowing. Your children are you're not going to have a say on what language is instituted in your school. So the bill then became very, in my opinion, politicized, because we knew we had upcoming elections and it was used for me, purely to politicize it. We now see ourselves with a coalition government, and it's actually allowing people then to step back and educate themselves, inform themselves. So yes, there was scare tactics being employed, but we live in a democratic country. We have access to information, and that has always been what I've said to people. You will always be scared of the unknown. So once you empower yourself and you know more, you can make a better informed decision. So going back to it, I think discussion and seeking knowledge about it is good. And essentially, what the bill is doing also is looking to bridge the gap that has still been there. And like Ian said, maybe 30 years too late, but I do believe that you have to start now.
I think you're so spot on by talking about how important it is to be educated, because we can't be fighting for something or raising our voices about something that we know absolutely nothing about and just building it on hearsay of what somebody else has had to say. We have seen it being very politicized, with many political parties coming to the forefront saying we are the voices of the people and we objecting to this. But Ian, you mentioned that there's good and there's bad in this, and the discrepancy in the education system has been so apparent, and 30 years too late. Tell me what the bad in this bill is. Let's explore that, and then let's explore what's actually good in this BELA bill as well.
I think the good in the BELA Bill is the accountability. Finally, school governing bodies, headmasters are going to be held accountable. The problem goes back further. It goes back further than 30 years, because you've had schools that have just been given carte blanche, and perhaps the Department of Education think that people know how to run a school governing body. Every 3 years, the school governing body has to change its leadership, change the members. And 3 years, they also, again, if you're lucky, you get some of those members back onto the school governing body. I've heard rumors before that, and rumors are not great, but, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire, that some schools' governing body members demand money from the school to sit on the governing body. That is illegal. You know, they can't be doing that. Also, other schools have got completely dysfunctional governing bodies because they can't round up enough parents to show an interest. Those parents are saying we have bigger problems to worry about, feeding ourselves, finding work, and now we must worry about a school governing body. So I think some schools are left to the principal's devices and or the staff. Other good that will come out of it is, like I said, the accountability, but accountability for staff. You need to have your staff members in the classroom and teaching, because at the end of the day, if you're in education, the first and only question you need to ask yourself is, what is the best thing for the children? Not you went into teaching knowing that it's a service. If you're in teaching to get rich, you're in the wrong job. So it's about the children at the end of the day. Are the children going to benefit from the BELA Bill? That's what we have to ask ourselves. So I'll take one of the BELA Bill's suggestions on homeschooling. I think absolutely. There are far too many homeschools that are popping up because every parent thinks, well, I gave birth to the child, therefore I'll be able to teach the child. Teaching and parenting is completely different. So clamping down on homeschooling, I think, is absolutely fantastic. We need to do it. How come schools, private and other, are legislated and are checked on and have quality controls in place? Homeschooling can get away with it. We need to clamp down on that kind of thing.
So, Ian, let me ask you then, right? We're talking about the good part of the BELA Bill being accountability for the governing bodies, accountability for staff, that they're actually in the classrooms doing what they need to be doing, that we've got environments that are legislated to be in the best interest of the children, not just popping up. And the reason I'm saying this is I know that the many areas we work in, we even see it from really young centers that have been opened up saying we're ECD centers, but when you ask them, what are you doing? Oh, there's snack time, there's sleep time, there's home time, and there's nothing else, no teaching being done. My question then is, how is this bill going to actually do oversight and monitor that it's being entrenched, or that it's being effective in these environments? Because we can barely manage with the government doing oversight on general things, where you look at many schools in other areas where we don't even have proper toilet facilities. How on earth would they be able to take this and force it, oversee it, and make sure that it is happening? Yes, me?
And that is the issue.
How much time have you got?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that has been one of the kickbacks against the bill is the economic implications of enforcing this and bringing it into law, because you'd have to have programs to train the teachers, you'd have programs to train the SGBs, and having worked in the public and the private sector with education, serving on a board for a private school as well as a non-profit that looks at empowering SGBs in rural areas in Limpopo, that is basically what it boils down to is how much of money is going to be made available, who's going to actually implement it. And what the BELA Bill wants to do is to centralize it so that there's more responsibility on government, there's more responsibility on the department heads. Whether or not that's, pie in the sky, I mean, it's all well and good to be hopeful about things, but that is one of the negative feedbacks from political parties, from budgets, from how they're going to actually use what they are allocated for the purpose that it was allocated for. And that's one of the biggest implications that's been canvassed in Parliament as well, is the cost factor. How do you make sure, like you say, an oversight?
Absolutely.
And I
Because
think it comes down, to educating parents enough by social media, educating the pupils currently at schools as well, so that it becomes a cohesive relationship where people want to show up and people want to take accountability, because you've been given those opportunities now.
Absolutely. And then my question then, Ian, to you is, you mentioned in terms of the homeschooling that's just popping up all over the place. How will does this BELA Bill affect just public schools? Does it affect private schools, homeschooling, private institutions, religious classes like madrasas? To what extent is this BELA Bill going to be effective for any form of education, or is it just a public school system?
I don't know at this stage whether they will make it a private school thing, because the Constitution protects private schools. But we do have to adhere to the Umalusi quality controls. We do undergo the Umalusi checks on a regular basis. We also have the independent, if you belong to a certain part of the independent schools, you have your own independent checkup and systems in place. However, like homeschools, there's a lot of private schools that start because people think, it's a quick buck. Let's have 20 children in there at 3,000 Rand a month. Wow, we're going to make so much money. But there's so much education. And I would stand strongly behind any bill that goes into homeschools, illegal schools, pop-up schools, under the 10 schools, call them what you like, who do not have to adhere to any legislation. I mean, let's just start with health and safety. We jump through hoops for health and safety in our school alone. That's just health and safety. What are those other schools being checked up on? How do we know that those children are safe? And more importantly, how do we know that they're leaving there with more knowledge in their heads, or the ability to process more knowledge than when they started? Who is checking that? But getting back to what Yasmin said now, it's a great idea. The problem is the amount of money involved. I think I read just now, just to start the grade R system, for all public schools, you're looking at about 28 billion Rand. The reality is that this country doesn't have 28 billion Rand. It's a super idea. Get children into schools, get them to love the system, as you said yourself. But we're not. The reality is, start smaller and try and build it up. But perhaps the thing is, you got to get your teachers in the classrooms, and they've got to be teaching a full day. Sometimes I've heard stories of some schools allow their teachers to go home when the children go home. There's absolutely no extramurals. It's a compounded problem with that, because extramural is part of education. Education, not just learning your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s. What about a taxi system that allows the children to stay until 4 in the afternoon so that they can do soccer and netball and whatever else is on offer? Unfortunately, a lot of these children, their lives are guided by their transport systems.
Yes, absolutely. And I think those are realities that need to be taken into account, because this is not just a decision or an impact or an opinion that we can have that only affects us. We live in a country that is impacted, we need to realize it's going to impact a number of children in various settings and in various areas. We've got to go for a quick ad break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the BELA Bill. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Contact Lenasia Livestock and Poultry for all your Sadaka, Akika and Qurbani requirements. We offer clean, hygienic abattoir style and refrigeration facilities. Sheep, goats and cows are available at competitive market-related prices, direct to the public. We slaughter, slice and distribute on your behalf. But that's not all. Introducing Meatmasters Halal Butchery, our sister company situated on our farm in Lenasia. Unbeatable prices on lamb, beef and chicken. Lenasia Livestock and Poultry. Livestock is our business. We are SANHA approved. Telephone 011 857 1774. Call now.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic Sharia and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Are you planning a wedding, birthday party, corporate event, or any special occasion? Kaniz Catering Services got you covered. Our catering services are here to elevate your event to unforgettable heights. From tantalizing appetizers to mouth-watering main courses and desserts, our culinary creations are crafted with passion and precision to delight your guests' taste buds. Our spit braai is a talk of the town. Indulge in succulent, tender meats, slow roasted to perfection over an open flame. Kaniz Catering Services chefs bring creativity and expertise to every dish they prepare, ensuring that each bite is a culinary masterpiece. We take care of your guests while you relax and enjoy every moment of your function. Whether it's plated meals to a simple buffet, we are on top of it all. Ready to start planning your perfect event? Get in touch with us today to discuss your catering needs and request a personalized quote. Let us take your event to the next level with our exceptional catering services. Kaniz Catering Services, situated at number 373 Jabundlovu Street, Pietermaritzburg. Call now 033 342 3511 or email us on info@kaniz.co.za for Pietermaritzburg and surrounding areas only. Visit www.kaniz.co.za. day.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the mid-morning show with me, Zaheerah Bham-Ismail, right here at Salam Media. You're welcome to call in and to participate in today's conversation. You can call us on our studio line 011-680-0355. You can WhatsApp us on 061-766-0355. Find us on Twitter at Salam Media, on Facebook on our Salam Media page, or on our online streaming, salammedia.com/listen-live. You're welcome to interact with us. Send us your comments and your questions. We're discussing the proposed BELA Bill and understanding the nuances around it so that we can make a better opinion as to how it impacts us and affects all the children in South Africa. In my studio today, I'm sitting with our guest, Ian, who's got over 30 years of experience in the education field, and Yasmin Bamji, who sits on the board of educational sectors and is also a lawyer. Welcome back to the studios, Ian and Yasmin. We're picking up on the conversation. We were starting off on what are the some of the positive things on the BELA Bill that has been proposed. And I think people often mistake it because, Ian, you said in this part of the BELA Bill, and people think that it's just one paragraph, that's the BELA Bill, without realizing that it's also huge amounts of aspects in it. It's like you mentioned, some are good, some are bad, but also something that is much needed. And when we talk about education, we're talking about the fact that it is affecting huge amounts of students because we're having, as Ian mentioned, illegal schools coming up, unregistered schools coming up that may not be doing right, maybe just seeing it as a business opportunity, but not necessarily doing right by the students. And this bill does hold student bodies accountable, holds staff accountable to ensure that they're doing what they're being paid to do, but it also ensures that schools that are being set up are accountable for actually teaching children. And Ian, we have seen homeschooling come up quite predominantly in many areas, and a lot of parents are opting for that because it's seen as a safer option for their children. Just linking this back in terms of the BELA Bill, where we spoke about ensuring that there is accountability, that work is being done, that the children are protected in this environment. Do you think and you see this as something that would be happening effectively?
It's quite a double-edged question because there are homeschools and private schools who are doing everything correctly, who are following the rule of law, and good stuff is happening in those schools. We've accepted children from homeschools into our school, and they're perfect. They fit in, they slot in, and off they go. I mean, we can debate the benefits of homeschooling, which this is not about that, and personal feelings on that. I just want to go back to slightly. I think one of the reasons that people feel threatened by this bill is twofold. The first one is that a lot of schools, government schools, state schools, and private schools are adhering to the rule of law and are doing what is required and are jumping through hoops and getting their qualifications and getting their visits and up to date and everything is in order and we've ticked all the boxes. And we're kind of standing back going, oh, this is more laws that we're going to have to adhere to, more hoops we have to jump through. Then the other people, I think, who would feel threatened are those that are not adhering to any of these rules. And they're realizing that they're going to be caught out. So perhaps that's where the negativity comes from. So if you're a homeschooler and you're doing the right thing and you've registered with the Department of Education and you've got your ducks in a row and you've got a proper curriculum and you undergo the same safety and quality checks that other schools, governments, and go through, then go for your life. But it's the non-compliers. Is that a word?
Absolutely,
Sorry,
yeah.
Is it right? Okay, great.
No, but as you said, absolutely, those are the ones that are going to feel more threatened by it. Absolutely, because if you're doing the right thing, there's no reason to feel threatened by these checkups on your school to ensure that everything is in order. Yasmin, you mentioned earlier in terms of the negativity, because many of us have heard in terms of what your kids will be allowed to do, the alcohol being sold at schools. Are these just rumors and part of the scare tactics, or were these things that were actually included in this BELA Bill?
So let's go to the alcohol, because that's been scrapped out of the bill because there was debate about it and it was seen as lending itself to behavior that was not appropriate around school children. So that clause has been deleted from the bill.
It's a
With
concern that
regard,
it's even included in the bill, especially around children. But I'm glad to hear that it has been excluded completely.
So yes, so the understanding behind it was it would be for fundraising. I'm not in agreement with that at all. Not even from a personal view, but just basically what safety measures are then in place, because parents are then allowed to drink alcohol and get in a car with a child. So that was hugely debated, canvassed, and that was scrapped from the bill. To go back to the other negative impacts that the bill has brought up, or like the fervor around it and social media push for, vote against it, etc., was that children were going to be allowed to have abortions from 12 years old without their parents knowing about it, and that the teacher would give permission. And that is absolute fiction. The bill doesn't provide for that, nor did the Schools Act provide for that, nor did the Employment of Educators Act provide for that. What it does provide for is how to deal with pregnant learners. And unfortunately, in our country, we have very young girls who are pregnant. It is a vice but it's a reality. So how do you then procedurally deal with that? Another concern was centralized governance, that taking away from the SGBs and giving it to a department head to, decide on admission and language policy. But one needs to also look at the discrepancy in the social economic setup of our education in the past 30 years, that we have rural areas where there's no input, and then we have really well-functioning, established public schools with strong SGBs who are adamant that certain things happen in a certain way and that only children from these schools will be admitted. There's been cases that have canvassed and gone right up to the Supreme Court that should a learner from a feeder area be admitted without the SGBs only say so. And so this will limit that. It's going to ensure that there's compliance with legislation. If you're going to have a language policy, your SGB is not going to be able to just implement that this is the language of the school. They're going to have to follow a procedure and get the head to approve it. But that doesn't mean that you cannot actually have dialogue about it. And then the other concern was, like you're going back to homeschooling now, is what curriculum do these children follow? So the curriculum was never going to be changed in terms of the BELA Bill. A curriculum in this country can only be changed if you go to the curriculum assessment and policy statement, which is your CAPS. And most private schools and government schools use the CAP system. So the BELA Bill wasn't introducing a change to a curriculum where everything would be included. And the main concern with the curriculum there was in including sexuality education. And that was the myth around it, was that from a young age, our children were going to be taught. And this is not included in the BELA Bill. And the state can't change the curriculum because the state wants to. It needs to still follow the process by going to CAPS and getting approved there. And then the other concern was parents not having power. They were, that everything would be taken over by the state and they would regulate what was in the best interests of the child. And that's also not true. So there's been a lot of misconceptions, but the same way and by the same token, there's a lot of information out there. And I think it is pertinent for parents, for SGBs, for educators to go and seek that knowledge. It's also, I think this is where the economic part would come in with training and workshops around it. There's been open invitation for people to attend hearings and have their say. I know the one issue has been that, okay, logistically, if I'm sitting where I am and the hearing is maybe 300 kilometers away, then I have to make the effort to get there. How do we get the information out to people? How do we discuss? How do we dialogue about it? So yeah, as much as there's misconceptions, there's kickback, there's reason in it. I don't ever think any law is passed without huge amount of consideration and input and back and forth and debate, and we need to respect that process as well.
And I think you've touched on so many pertinent topics, because many people have said, oh, this is affecting every part of our value system. Every person in this country's value system is being impacted on and influenced. And I think you made mention of many things that firstly were misinformation, secondly has been taken out of the bill, but also a concern regarding sexuality being taught to our children at a very young age is actually not even a part of the BELA Bill. That has to be dealt with separately, part of CAPS. And that's a completely different discussion. And I think one that has to be unpacked as well, because that is a huge concern for many of us as parents. But like you said, it actually doesn't even fall part of this entity that we're discussing at the moment. Ian, with regards to following up on what Yasmin has said with regards to your concerns about the BELA Bill, because we mentioned what the good aspects are, but as you rightfully said at the beginning, there's also bad aspects to it. Is there anything else you'd like to add on that as an educator would be a concern for you in terms of the BELA Bill? Sorry, Ian, we just need to unmute your mic there. Perfect, we've got you.
I hated it when people did that to me. Anyway, there's me. Sorry about that. I think, as with any bill or any portion of any law, as long as it is carried out equitably, that is the issue. You can't only hammer on the schools that are actually doing the work and getting it done because they're easy targets. Get this out, get it safely and fairly to everybody so that they can all make a difference. I do think that some things need to be looked at. The parental responsibility. Parents could face jail time if they fail to ensure that their children don't attend school regularly or do. Okay, so obviously that can be unpacked. What capacity do we have for that? Do we have capacity to follow up on parents that don't? That's the first problem. Secondly, what are we going to do about child-headed households where the oldest sister in grade 10 is looking after her brothers and sisters in grade 4 and 5 because mom and dad are working and or have passed on? How is that going to do? So we need the Department of Social Welfare to get involved with this as well, because it's far bigger than just education. A language policy, yep, I think that's going to open up huge issues. We have 11 languages, so it's very difficult. And one thing I just want to make a comment on, and I cannot believe that 30 years later we are still dealing with a ban on corporal punishment. I cannot believe that I read in the media still that teachers are beating children. Yes, I know that children beat the teachers as well, but there are ways to deal with this. Why are we still dealing with this at this stage? Is it because we're not getting, or the teachers feel that they're not getting the support from the SGB and or the management team and or their Department of Education? And I would say that can be debated. We frame you next week, we'll have another chat about that. But corporal punishment shouldn't be happening. It's not necessary. I know when you're working in different schools and you've got big classes and children are coming from impoverished and difficult backgrounds, maybe I wouldn't be saying the same thing. So, yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, as you're saying, there's so many aspects to be unpacked, but not necessarily part of the BELA Bill, but things that definitely need discussion in the education field and sector. And I think this is something we need to look at unpacking. Yasmin, when we're talking about this BELA Bill, and Ian rightfully said, it's holding accountable many of the illegal schooling environments that have been opened. But how does this impact our madrasas? And in terms of what's being taught at our madrasas, do we still have control of the information being given at madrasas or any other religious classes that are taking place through the country?
So the BELA Bill didn't make enough provision, in my opinion, for what we would term as cottage schools. So in South Africa, there's, for me, make it easier, there's public, private, and then your homeschooling or cottage schools. So if it's a madrasa and a religious institute, you're following a curriculum. What the BELA Bill wants to happen is that this homeschool must still be registered with the Department of Education. You must submit your curriculum. There's been a push from some of these religious schools to include certain secular subjects so that when children do choose to go and write the NSC exam, your national certificate, that they are in line with where their peers are, because you want to empower them to also be I'm not going to say market related, but be able to then go into a mainstream school if they do not offer an equivalent for what your basic Department of Education. So in South Africa, we started our schools. Currently, it's from 7 to 15. They want to move that, which is 9 years of compulsory schooling. They want to move that by including the grade R. So it would be from 6 to 15. Yeah. And with your madrasas and religious schools, the question will be what happens after grade 9? Yeah, that's grade 9. And how is the child equipped then to maybe attend a institute where they can get further learning, further education? So there again, it's accountability. It's about having a curriculum in place. It's also for safeguarding children, looking at their best interest. Are these schools there with all the checks and balances in place? Is there a possibility for these children being abused in a certain way? And the same thing, I'm just going to touch on Ian and corporal punishment again, is the reason that it was introduced into the BELA Bill is to limit what you have is initiation schools and rural schools and the practices that they have in a non-violent way, not allowing initiation practices to go on. And the pushback will come from cultural resistance, from people saying, but this is how we've done it for decades and this is how we want to do it. So it all would boil down to being accountable, being transparent, and being able to educate a child in their best interest.
Yasmin, I just have to ask you though, then I can accept the accountability. I can accept the safeguarding of children. I can accept the absolute that we want to ensure that no children are abused in any institutions at any level whatsoever. But how does anybody else come in and give you advice in terms of your curriculum, whether it's at a madrasa or a rural, a cultural school environment where they're teaching children about their own culture and their own traditional healing and their own traditional rules? How can that be an oversight from government? Because then that is interfering in curriculum.
So in terms of curriculum, you're going to follow something that is already approved. When it comes to a religious school and in terms of the madrasa, I'm not sure what curriculum they're following. I'm not familiar with it, but there would be a process which the BELA Bill is introducing to see that the procedure is followed correctly. So whether you take a curriculum, it's not about them changing the curriculum. It's about following the process to register your home school. That's what the BELA Bill is enforcing.
To register your curriculum.
To register it. They're not going to change it. They want to look at having it registered that everything is in place. If you're saying that you're going to teach your children in a certain way, there should be a curriculum that you are following that comes from wherever it comes from, but it's registered. The process is followed and your home school is registered. So I don't think that what the BELA Bill wants to do is change your curriculum. What they want to do is make sure that there is actually a curriculum and that it's an approved curriculum.
I think it's late. Yes, Ian, go ahead.
Sorry, Zaheerah.
Please go ahead.
On that point, we need to stop politicizing education. We need to have people who are qualified teachers in these top positions that can look at different curriculums and what is the best thing for the child at the end of the day. To have a bunch of politicians sign off on a curriculum and say it's right, so you can't do that. That's like me flying an airplane. You're going to die. So, we need to have teachers doing it for teachers doing it for children. What is the best thing for the child at the end of the day? We need to ask ourselves at every turn of this BELA Bill or any other bill that comes around, what is the best thing for the child?
I think, Ian, that sums it up so well, because I think that is what many people are concerned about, and especially educators, as in who is doing this oversight to say what is okay and isn't okay, because we live in a multicultural, multi-religious society that has allowed people a freedom of expressing themselves, their religion, their identity, and now all of a sudden you're being told there's an oversight body watching and deciding what happens and what's okay and what isn't okay. So I think that for me would be a huge pertinent point to say, who are your oversight bodies? Who's who's saying that this is fine or isn't? Because I would hate for somebody who knows nothing about my religion or my culture to have an oversight or say in terms of what I'm teaching my children or what where I'm sending my children to go and learn. And we know that even in general communities, people will teach very differently. They'll have different outlooks and different aspects from any form of religion. And I think this is where parents are worried that they are going to not have control as to what's being exposed or what their children are being exposed to.
These are the things that the government has to look at and define very clearly how it's going to be rolled out, how it's going to be financed, what is best for the child at the end of the day. Are we going to throw 30 billion rand at this and then in 10 years' time go, gee, guys, what are we going to do? Because if change starts now at the age of 5 or 6 and it takes another 20 years, at least the change has started and hopefully for the better. But we cannot carry the road. Cannot carry on the road that we're on, where we get a 78% strict pass. But when we look at the amount of children that have fallen out of school in the meantime, why have they fallen out of school? They've fallen out of school because there's no control, and the control comes from your teachers to your SGBs, to your principals, to the government. Sorry to say it, but that's a reality. Why are we allowing children to fall off the system? Is it socioeconomic? They can't get to school. We still have that problem. Is it socioeconomic that these children don't have toilets yet? These are the things that should have been addressed a long time ago. If I was a child going to school and there was no toilet, it was a pit latrine, what does it say about me that I don't count? So these are the things that need to be looked at. It's far bigger than just education. This is a country problem.
Absolutely. We're going to have to take a quick ad break, but I'd like to end with one of our listeners' comments who said, we have a country that is great at legislation, but terrible at implementation and effective compliance monitoring. And very well summed up, a thumbs up there from Ian. And that's exactly what we started the conversation with, saying this is where we know we're going to fall short. We'll be taking a quick ad break and continuing with this conversation straight after. Stay tuned.
Humanitarian journalism.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Dad, these Frymax chips are so tasty. Wow, that really takes me back. My dad bought me a Frymax chips every day after school. They were my favorite when I was your age as well. Quality is at the very heart of what we do, and that's why we ensure that every Frymax packet is filled with the beautiful goodness and flavor-packed taste that you've come to expect from us since 1982. Frymax, from generation to generation.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
You South African, of course. You anxious about the future. We've got you covered. Build on your wealth portfolio with Rendry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange. Visit us at 151 Stephen Dlamini Road, Musgrave, Durban, or call us on 031 202 4700 for more information. Rendry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Are you planning a wedding, birthday party, corporate event, or any special occasion? Kane's Catering Services got you covered. Our catering services are here to elevate your event to unforgettable heights. From tantalizing appetizers to mouth-watering main courses and desserts, our culinary creations are crafted with passion and precision to delight your guests' taste buds. Our spit braai is a talk of the town. Indulge in succulent, tender meats, slow roasted to perfection over an open flame. Kane's Catering Services chefs bring creativity and expertise to every dish they prepare, ensuring that each bite is a culinary masterpiece. We take care of your guests while you relax and enjoy every moment of your function. Whether it's plated meals to a simple buffet, we are on top of it all. Ready to start planning your perfect event? Get in touch with us today to discuss your catering needs and request a personalized quote. Let us take your event to the next level with our exceptional catering services. Kane's Catering Services, situated at number 373 Jabund Lovo Street, Pietermaritzburg. Call now 033 342 3511 or email us on info@kanees.co.za for Pietermaritzburg and surrounding areas only. Visit www.kanees.co.za.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media.
لا تقل لوحدي أو كيف السبيل.
Humanity sets the agenda.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the mid-morning show with me, Zaheerah Bham-Ismail. We're having quite an intense discussion on the BELA Bill with Yasmin Bamji and with Ian. Ian, I know we are running short on time with having you on our studios. You will have to leave us shortly. So Ian, let me ask you, as an educator, being in this field for over 30 years, how do you feel about what the BELA Bill is proposing and the future of education in South Africa? We have spoken about, we know for a fact that it's very unequal. If we want equality, it has to start from the levels of education, and we know there's no discussion around how unequal education currently is. But where do you and the impact of this going forward, not just, and I'm going to leave it slightly broad because I want a comment from you, not just on the BELA Bill, but also what you see coming up in the curriculum, in the CAPS curriculums that are being forced into school environments?
It doesn't matter what curriculum you do. It really doesn't matter what you do. It's up to what your teachers are doing. If your teachers are teaching, they could teach us kids to cut grass. They could teach them to fly aeroplanes. It doesn't matter. If they're in the classroom and they're teaching, the job will get done. So it could be CAPS, it could be key stages, it could be whatever you want it to be. If your teachers are teaching, you'll get the job done. I am quite positive about any change that is going to help children. At the end of the day, is this going to help children? Ultimately, I believe if it's fairly and equitably rolled out and it's done quickly and properly, it's going to help the children. There's a lot of children in this country who are suffering. Not everybody can afford to send their children to even some state schools, that have been run properly. All schools, there's schools that don't charge school fees that are being run properly. Are the children there? The question must be, if they're not there, why aren't they there? Is it transport? Is it socioeconomic? What is it? Get the children in the classroom, keep the teachers in the classroom, roll this bill out, make it happen, have follow-up, put qualified teachers in place to follow up on systems like this, not politicians. I agree with that listener. We're good at legislating, but we're not good at follow-up. So let's follow up. Let's get this done properly.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for joining us today on Salam Media. We've absolutely appreciated your input, your insight, your experience, and your expertise. And no doubt we'll be calling you again because I think there's so many other things in the education sector that need to be unpacked that we don't often deal with. So thank you for joining us today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Yasmin, let's continue with this conversation. I think for many of the parents, there's always been a concern about, are our voices muted in this discussion? And there's been a frustration of the fact that we no longer have a say in our children's education. And the truth of it is, for every parent, this is something that is paramount. This is the biggest thing for them. This is what we work for. We all want to make sure our children have a good education, they have a good foundation, and a good start to whatever they want to do. How much of a voice do we still have with this bill coming into effect?
In my opinion, there's always, you always raise your voice. You're given a platform. We live in a country that's very different to many of us, saw the tail end of, or our parents grew up in. And we need to take those opportunities, and we need to, like I say, when there's a fear, it's educating yourself that will take away that fear. So us as parents need to take the opportunity to speak up. You still have a voice, because even if you are going to interact with your school, on that level, the educators are still accountable. They can also still give you feedback. And like the listener said, we have a brilliant legislation, we have wonderful laws, but everything does have to get tested as well. The law might come in, and then there will be cases, and then our country also looks at case law. So if you are not happy with something, you still have the opportunity to voice your concerns. You should voice your concerns. You should empower yourself. You should tell your children to empower themselves. You should go and speak to your headmaster. You should go and speak to, attend the meetings with the SGBs. Go get involved. It doesn't help for us to all sit back and then to be upset about things if we're also not taking accountability for where we want to be and what we want our children to be learning and what we see as maintaining the value system of our society. So it's not the be all and end all. It's not the end. It's not a case of throwing your hands up in the air and walking away. There's always options. And it's for people to exercise those options, for people to take accountability for them either not acting or acting up.
And I think that's so important, because very often we think we're parenting, but there's a huge difference between passive parenting and active parenting. And active parenting means we actively need to be involved. If we care about our children's education, we need to be there. Having said that, I must say, I'm almost breathing a sigh of relief as I see what's coming up, to think that my children are almost out of the schooling system. And I'm so glad that we don't have to deal with this. But the truth of it is, we do have to deal with it at some point, because it does affect everyone as a community. And as Yasmin said, it's not the time to just sit back and to criticize what's being done. Be active, get your voices heard. You've got platforms where you can be heard. Go and do it. Yasmin, what is the way forward in terms of this? There are amendments that are being done to this. It hasn't been signed off as yet. Where to from here? And do we get clarity before it's signed off? Or do we have voices that are able to be heard before it's signed off in terms of these oversight bodies, implementation, effective monitoring going forward?
So there's wonderful resources available. I mean, if you Google Section 27 organization, there's parliamentary monitoring pages where you can look at exactly where the bill is, what's happening, what's the input. You can give feedback via those channels. What happened now is the new Minister of Education has requested or made a statement that she's going to request that the President not sign the bill and that it gets sent back to Parliament for more consideration. Because even if you look at the bill itself, and us as, me reading laws and practicing as an attorney, it's not an easy read. It's not something that's, I'm just going to delete and insert something. It's consideration, it's input. And like I say, there's still tests that will impact the act when it is passed. So it's not the end, and there are resources available for you to comment. There's campaigns that are still being waged in favor of the BELA Bill with amendments. So I would urge people to go and research. I would urge people to then get in touch with their schools and say, what is happening? Explain to us where we at. What is the impact going to be on our school? Speak to your board members and ask them, so what's going to happen with our admission and application? How do I know that my child's going to get a place at school? How do I know that my child's going to be instructed in a language that is that he's used to and accustomed to, that feeds into my culture and what I am, what's going to take me forward. So that's my advice: is you need to educate yourself, you need to empower yourself, you need to go onto platforms and share your voice, share your concerns, allay your fears as well.
And I think, as Ian had mentioned before he left also, we don't want it left to the schools who are actually doing effectively what they're supposed to be doing, who are already complying with law, to be over monitored, and the schools that have been left behind, again, still being neglected. And this is where we're going to be seeing that shortfall falling in.
Yeah, 100%. There's always going to be areas that thrive. There's always going to be areas. Getting the socioeconomic balance is going to take a lot of work. Getting the rural schools to come up to a standard where they don't even have adequate sanitation. Are they really concerned about what their language policy is and who filled out the forms and who submitted it to the department head? So that's going to happen, and it's unfortunate. I think essentially it's about what we can do firstly on your on your platform, and then let it trickle through. But as long as we can actually take accountability for our involvement in it.
Absolutely. I think the comforting thing is the fact that our voices are not silenced. We do have an opportunity to be able to say how we feel, what we think, what our thoughts are around this BELA Bill and the way going forward. And I think, just to recap our conversation at the beginning, there are good aspects to the BELA Bill in terms of there being accountability from your SGB bodies. There's accountability from your staff actually doing what they need to be doing, pitching up at school, teaching, not just sitting on their phones and ignoring the children. And I think, as we mentioned, in terms of the rural areas that many of us are already working in, a lot of these schooling environments are literally drop-off zones and a place where children waste time. And I'm saying that because it's a serious problem, because when you're talking about children not having access to equal education, it's evident, it's already there. Sometimes, as Ian mentioned, there's homeschoolings that are being opened as part of businesses and not necessarily for the best interest of the children. So this does protect those children. It does ensure that they have access to good, adequate education. However, there are a number of concerns around it, concerns around oversight bodies, concerns, as one of our listeners mentioned, regarding implementation, regarding oversight of it. And again, we don't want to be spending billions and then coming to a few years later going, oops, we made a mistake, let's go back and check. Because there has been a number of concerns with education in the way it has come up, in the way things have been implemented, where we've seen a decrease and a decline in our education system. There are changes that are needed. But is this the change that's going to fix it and answer it? And I think that's the question for all of us. Make your voices heard, stand up, chat to your SGB bodies, chat to your teachers, your principals, make sure they are taking an active stance in this before everything is signed off, so that we have an active part to play in the parenting and educating of the children of South Africa. Thank you so much, Yasmin, for joining us on air today, for giving us your insight, and for consistently being an advocate for community awareness and activism. I really thank you for your time today. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam.
Shukran to you.
Live from South Africa,